So our serial killer slash hitman was Richard Kuklinski, and this is by Aaron, Cora, and Hannah.
Kuklinski was born and raised in Jersey City, New Jersey, and he had a fairly unpleasant home life. Both of his parents were abusive, his father being an aggressive drunk and his mother being a strict disciplinarian. Richard and his siblings were hit almost daily in his home. In addition to the conflict between his family members, Richard was also fairly small in stature, making him a frequent target for the neighborhood bullies. He often took his frustration out on neighborhood pets by mutilating them to make himself feel more powerful. Ultimately, he snapped, and his first murder victim was actually the leader of the neighborhood gang, Charlie Lane, who he beat to death with a garden tool. Richard took part in his fair share of illegal activities, but his first defining employment was for the mafia. He was introduced to the mafia, the Gambino family crime, through Roy DeMeo. He was an enforcer for the family, making sure their debts were paid and threatening and hurting those who owed the family money. He became a favorite enforcer for the family because of his willingness to kill any man. Richard only earned an 8th grade education, dropping out before high school and picking up a series of odd jobs around his neighborhood, including illegal activities such as pirating stolen films.
Richard Kuklinski was killing for about 40 years in the New Jersey area before he was convicted for a total of 5 murders and was caught because an undercover agent finally caught up with Kuklinski in 1986. The agent's claims launched a joint investigation by the New Jersey's district attorney, the FBI, and the ATF. In 1986, Richard Kuklinski was arrested after investigators staged a cyanide purchase deal. As Hannah already stated, his first target was his enemy Charlie Lane, whom he repeatedly hit with a rod and dumped him off a bridge after cutting off his fingers and pulling out his teeth to hide his identity. His victims were anyone that annoyed him and reminded him of his alcoholic father that abused him. He has claimed to kill between 33 and 200 individuals in his interviews. His disposable methods were very unpredictable. That is one of the reasons why he could not originally, because his disposable methods range from dismemberment, burial, placing the body in the trunk of a car, cutting up bodies so they would fit into a 50-gallon oil drum, or just leaving the body on a park bench. In one interview, Kuklinski claimed that he would never kill a child and most likely would never kill a woman.
So when Richard Kuklinski was in jail, he was analyzed by Dr. Park Dietz, who was a forensic psychiatrist and FBI consultant, and he diagnosed Kuklinski with psychopathy, antisocial personality disorder, and paranoid disorder. There are a lot of signs of his mental illness. First of all, Kuklinski was aware of his mental illness, and he knew that his lack of empathy and fear in his killings wasn't normal. Also, people have said that the Kuklinski family was really popular, and they would host barbecues and block parties monthly, despite the turmoil going on in the home. And Kuklinski only ever regretted one murder, where a man was praying to God, and Kuklinski gave him 30 minutes to be saved by God, and when God didn't save him, he killed him. He would also brag to news stations about his crimes and the number of people he killed. Like Aaron said, when he first was incarcerated, he said that he only killed 33 people, but eventually he started making up numbers saying that he killed up to 200 people. And many of his crimes could be traced back to him due to his tactic of freezing victims so they'd be harder to identify. And in 1988, he was convicted with 2 life sentences and 30 more years later on after an additional confession. And then he died in 2006. He was convinced that he was poisoned due to the rare inflammation of the blood vessels that brought him to his death. And when he finally went into cardiac arrest, his wife refused to reverse the do not resuscitate order she had signed earlier, leading to his death at age 70.
Another factoid was that Richard Kuklinski's nickname was the Iceman due to his freezing methods of the body to skew the time of death. This was very popular, especially when he was convicted, and people wanted to make a movie about it, so they did, called The Iceman, with James Franco and Chris Evans, and it was made in 2012.
Like Aaron said, Kuklinski didn't want to ever kill or hurt children, and so he would force himself not to beat his own kids and would instead punch himself in the face until he passed out. And he also said, no, his daughter also said that he told his children that if he ever accidentally killed his wife and beat her to death, he'd have to kill his kids too because they'd be witnesses. So the kids always had bags packed ready to escape if the time ever came.
These are our sources. One quote from Richard Kuklinski on his killing methods was, "My friend, there's more than one way to do it. There's more than one way to skin something."